There are many theories on human motivation, but the one I ascribe to is self-determination theory, which posits that humans have three core needs required to leading a fulfilling life, beyond that which you purely need to survive, such as food and shelter. Autonomy. The first step toward a fulfilling life is having some autonomy or control over certain aspects of your choices and decision making. This might differ slightly for cultures that have internalized aspects of collectivism, but I think you would agree generally if we feel like our choices have an impact on our lives, we will, on the whole, be happier. The alternative is something akin to learned helplessness, where we feel like none of our choices matter and we resign ourselves to a nihilistic black hole of despair. Competence. The next need is competence, or your skill level in a domain you care about. It's important to separate competence from confidence, a hard lesson we learned when we confused self-esteem with self-worth. To demonstrate the difference, let's take the example of a piano player. In your arrogance, you believe you are the second coming of Bach, when in fact, you're a 2-year-old banging keys and driving your parents into a blind rage. The fake it till you make it mantra holds weight, but only up until the point where you have to perform and demonstrate mastery of a task. It is this actual, quantifiable skill growth that is required when it comes from reaping the benefits of intrinsic motivation. Relatedness. The final step in the journey towards self-determinative motivation is relationships. Hopefully, I don't have to convince you that humanity is a social species, and having fulfilling relationships, even for us introverts, is a key component of intrinsic motivation. Think about your own relationships. Which ones fill you up with energy and which ones drain you? Why is that? A lot of reasons, I know, but overall, if you feel a connection to someone on a deep level, if you're able to share your true self, even with all the imperfection and vulnerabilities, and that is accepted by another person, we are energized. If, on the other hand, you are surrounded by people who try to change you, or you feel like you need to act a certain way that goes against important aspects of your identity, there is tension and a move away from intrinsically motivated relationships and toward extrinsically motivated ones. Corrupting intrinsic motivation. One last thing to consider before we move on to why this matters in machine learning and alignment. There have been many studies on the impacts of externally motivating intrinsic behaviors, and the results are not good. One of the primary problems is that extrinsic motivators depend on an external reward. What this means, in general, is that when you stop rewarding someone for a behavior, that behavior is likely to disappear. So what happens when we begin rewarding intrinsically motivated behavior? For example, let's say you turn your knitting hobby into a knitting business. Perhaps it thrives for a little while and you knit up a storm of products and make oodles of cash. But then the fad moves on and your business ultimately fails. Will you still knit for the fun of it? Or because it is no longer tied to a financial reward, will you no longer have interest or engagement in demonstrating your competence in that domain?